informative and entertaining discussions that happen, and love for you to take a look at that. Okay, weather briefings, how it used to be. Oh man, I don't know how long y'all have been flying, but if you're anywhere near as gray as I am, you spent many, many years trying to decode area forecasts like this, all caps, you know, cryptic, you know, like synopsis, 03Z, TROF, SE, AB, NRN, like what the heck does that mean? Well, apparently at 03Z, there was a trough southeast, and now I'm lost. I don't know, probably Alberta, I don't know, but this was it. There were no graphical goodies. There were no useful maps, and you'd have to call on the phone and say, hey, what's my forecast for flying from, you know, Meigs Field, when that was in business, to St. Louis, and you'd get all this chatter and text, and you'd have to figure out whether this is a flight you want to make and how to account for winds aloft at different, man, oh man, it was tedious. So I'm happy that that's a thing of the past. If you were lucky, there was a flight service station near you, and you could walk in and talk to one of these nice folks and actually see the physical charts, which would then look like this. They looked like they were faxed and then faxed and then faxed again. Terrible resolution, all of this symbology that you may or may not remember what the heck anything means. Okay, today it's much, much better. I should have changed the title of this slide, because that's here's how it is now. Most of you probably recognize this as just the weather app, that at least on an iPhone, this is what it looks like. My computer's telling me that they're low resources and I may have a problem. Tom, can you hear me okay? Tom Slater, I see you momentarily. Audio good? Okay, thank you. If anything happens, please chat me. Computer's whining at me a little bit. So anyway, I wake up in the morning and I look at this. It's not an official source of weather briefing. I will never get away with it if I just use this to go fly, and then who knows what happens. And they talk to me and like, did you get a weather briefing? Well, I looked at the weather app, sir. You know what? There's nothing that says you can't look at it. It's there. It gives you information. Internet crashed. Okay. Just checking the chat. It gives you a quick overview. It's very low resolution, so to speak. In other words, it says, so here, Fred, where it was now when I did this screenshot about a half hour ago, it shows clouds with a little rain symbol and 61. Well, how cloudy, how low, what's the wind, how thick is the rain, what are the cloud heights, and so on. So it's very, very general, obviously, because it's made for the general public, and really they just going to help you know whether you need to bring a raincoat today or a umbrella. But it gives you a quick overview, and I look at this, and then when I go to 1-800-WX-BRIEF or Foreflight, it better correlate. And if it doesn't, I'm like, well, who do I believe? Because once in a while they're like out of sync, and I got to figure out what's really going to be happening today. And so yeah, don't be afraid to look at stuff. It's just not official. So what? So here's the amazing stuff today. Earlier, I was in my kitchen fixing lunch, and I heard a noise I couldn't quite identify. It sounded like water, but I don't know if it's rain on my roof, or did my house spring a leak, or did the cats find a way to make noise I don't know. So I was actually stuck with my hands were too busy, and I couldn't get out of the kitchen to go to the window and see what's going on. But I had my iPhone next to me. Dang it! I bring up Foreflight, turn on the precipitation layer. There's a shower over my head. Okay, that explains it. And then a few minutes later, when I freed up my hands, I went outside and looked. Lo and behold, it's all wet. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing tools. So a few general comments about the wind MEI-Rs and TAFs, and it just kind of what kind of information are we getting when we look at these things. So I pulled some information out of Aviation Weather Services. So I'm going to stop share for 1 second and then go share something different as soon as I find it. Nope. Yep. And I got to go back to share screen. Where'd it go? That one. And, you know, one of the things I love to encourage is to use these documents. They're free, they're online. Just grab them from FAA.gov, or heck, just you know, search for it on Google or Bing or whatever. You know, just go Aviation Weather Services and then make sure you find the latest one. And then you can, I mean, this one's 348 pages long. Don't sit and read it, but look up, you know, I don't know. Let's see, I'll just do a search here for cloud heights and see, no matches. Okay, how about cloud height? What am I doing wrong? Clouds, okay. So if you want to learn more about clouds, look, additional products for clouds, visibility, and so on. Click on that, look at all this information. So you can just go to where you need to go. You don't have to sit and read the dang thing, because unless you have insomnia, then it's a good read. So let me go back to PowerPoint like that right there. And so, you know, use your resources. Their FAA puts them out for a reason, and don't be afraid. There's Aviation Weather, which is a different one. Talks about the theory of weather and so on. And then Aviation Weather Services, which drills down into how do you get this, how do you get the information, and what does it mean? So for example, from that document I just showed you, the wind group in a MEI-R means something. Let's find out what it means. So here's just a sample MEI-R, and I think you can read this with me. So at OKC, Oklahoma City, so 011955Z. That means on the 1st of the month, whatever month it was when this was put out, at 1955 Zulu. It was an automated observation as opposed to human generated. And I got to admit some people. Okay, and so the wind group, they put in bold to make it obvious. So from 220 at 15, gusting to 25. Pretty good southwesterly flow, basically 15 to 25 knots. And then the rest of the information, 3/4 of a mile visibility, and so on. So, but right now we're looking at the wind group. And so I already gave away the answer down below, but the question is that 220 direction that the wind is coming from, is it related to true north or magnetic north? That could be an interesting question if that's, if you're using runway, I don't know, let's say it's runway 18. It looks like a 40-degree crosswind. That's pretty juicy. But if you're off by 15 degrees because of true to magnetic, let's see, it could, depending on whether you add or subtract, it's either, what did I say, 40 degrees. So it's either 25-degree crosswind, which isn't as bad, or it's a 55-degree crosswind, which is much worse. So we got to know these things. So wind is the horizontal motion of air, obviously, and indicates the direction the wind is coming from. In the wind group, the wind direction is coded as the first 3 digits, so it's from 220. And another important tidbit, this sort of gets lost in the text, but it's very, very important. It is determined by averaging the recorded wind direction over a 2-minute period. So you kind of think that this is the precise wind at 1955 Zulu, because that's what's in the MEI-R. But what the system is doing is taking a running 2-minute average and then saying, okay, over the last 2 minutes, this is what I saw. Well, I don't know, 2 minutes before that, it might have been 15 gusting to 40. So I just want you to keep in mind that I used to have a tendency to think, you know, the MEI-Rs typically come out just before the hour, like at 53, 55, 56, something like that. So it's basically the just before the hour reading, unless it's a special observation. And then if you look at it, let's say half past the hour, and you think, well, okay, well, the current weather is, no, it's not. That was the weather for the 2 minutes prior to the time that the reading was taken. It could be quite a bit different now, and yeah, don't get fooled into thinking that is the weather. That was simply the weather that was measured at that time and for the 2 minutes before it, and when it comes to wind. So it's coded in tens of degrees relative to true north. Well, I don't know. Runway numbers are assigned based on magnetic, aren't they? So here I am in basically minus 15 and a half, let's say minus 16, meaning, let's see, true north for me is actually, let's say 345 magnetic. Because if you look at VOR rows, the 0 on that, or the 360, points to magnetic north. So you can see which way whether you have to add or subtract. That's the easy way to figure out what you have to do. So for me to get from true to magnetic, I have to, hang on, I have to subtract, because I'd have to go from 360 to 345. So this 220 wind, if it was over here in my neighborhood and where my isogonic lines are, this would be magnetic 205. But remember, they round to the nearest 10, and it would actually be 204, so it would actually be 200. So I've done this. My local reporting airport nearest where my airplane is, Hillsboro, Oregon, HIO. There's a number you can dial in and listen to the ATIS. And when the ATIS said from wind was 200 at such and such, and I'd go to my Foreflight, and guess what? In print, it says it's 220. Just saying, you got to be cognizant of the fact that if you're reading it off of one of these devices or off your computer, if you're reading it, it is true north. But your runways and your compass and your heading are magnetic. So just keep in mind, you may need to make that kind of correction. Okay, hope that's clear. And if there's any question on that, guess what? Go to Aviation Weather Services, read up on it, talk to your flight instructor, figure out how to add, subtract, and so on. Okay, so basically, if it's written, if you read it, it's true north. If it is spoken, in other words, if you hear it through an AWOS or ASOS or ATIS, it's magnetic. All right. So cloud heights in AGL, if it's in a MEI-R. TAFs are also true north. Surface wind is true north, I said that. And cloud groups are in a TAF are AGL. All right, so when we go to reading the synopsis, surface analysis, or synopsis, basically the same thing. We need to know what these symbols mean. So high pressure, that's easy, that's an H. Low pressure is a low. Cold front is a little triangle, and they make it blue for us because that's what is associated with cold. Warm front is kind of the red semicircle. Occluded front is an alternating triangle and semicircle. And a stationary front is alternating, but on different sides of the line. We'll find out what those mean in just a second. And then there's if it's a trough, it's at least on Foreflight, it's a kind of a yellow dashed line. If you see this red thing with dots, that's a squall line, a bunch of thunderstorms. And I regret, I don't know what a dry line is, but I've never seen one. So the cold front, warm front, occluded front, stationary front, So let's see. So cold front, you probably remember, it's cold air sneaks under warm air and leads to rain and often cumulonimbus stuff. A warm front, they move more slowly, usually result in stratus clouds and prolonged rain and drizzle. Stationary front is when warm and cold air meet and neither has the force to move the other. So it just sits there generating weather. So cold air mass, warm air mass meet and just nobody wins. It just sits there. And an occluded front forms when warm air mass gets caught between two cold air masses. So it's sort of stationary front, but there's a cold mass on each side and the warm air is hanging out above it. So it's called occluded. All right. So people want to know, well, what do I need to do to get a legal weather briefing? So this is off the Foreflight help, and it's 91103, and I'll expand it out so you can see it better. You can do it in Foreflight. And what it says is what pilots are typically concerned about when they discuss a legal weather briefing is whether or not they will have proof or record of their briefing. This is important in case of an incident, so you can prove you met the requirements of 91103. So it says we, meaning Foreflight, do keep a record for 120 days, not forever, 120 days, provided you tap the brief button. It's actually briefing. If you simply look at MEI-Tars and TAFs and anything else, it's not recorded because you're just poking around. You're not getting an actual full-fledged briefing. And also, there's nothing associating it with a particular call sign or tail number. It's just some guy or gal poking around looking at weather. So you need to actually hit briefing in order to get them to record that you got a briefing. So what's the requirement? 91103, each pilot and command before beginning of any flight become available with all information, and it must include, for a flight under IFR or not in the vicinity of an airport, weather reports and forecasts and things like that. So it's good to be able to prove that you did that. And so remember what I read a couple of slides ago, if you hit brief, which is actually briefing, once you fill in the goodies here and tell it what you want to look for, Foreflight now knows your call sign and departure, destination, approximate, your date and approximate time of departure, and things like that. So it'll keep it for 120 days. So that's how to make sure that Foreflight does it. I like to go a step further, and once I get the briefing, if you then go to proceed to file, so you're actually filing a VFR flight plan, presumably. I'm really talking mostly VFR today. Obviously, IFR, you have to file a flight plan. But you can file a VFR flight plan, and even if you never open it, that's fine. The act of briefing and then proceeding to file means that Foreflight will kick out an email to you that says, yep, here you did it. You filed and you briefed that flight on that date at that time. And that way you don't have to worry about it dying in 120 days because that's all that Foreflight keeps it. You can keep that email forever. Ooh, someone chimed in. A dry line is like a front between dry and moist air masses. Okay, thank you. But so if you want your own personal record of having gotten a briefing, all you got to do is brief and then file. At least in Foreflight. Okay, so we are going to go to, we're going to go look at stuff. Let me check chat real quick, see if anything I got to do. So good comments so far. I don't have time to read all of them. I want to keep moving, but I will save the chat and I'll be able to get at it later. We want to go to right here. All right. So again, I don't know where you all are at, but let me do the free ones first. I want to make sure we do WX brief, and let's see, did that show up properly? Yeah, so let me get logged in. All right, so in WX brief, and of course, you can call them 1-800-WX brief and talk to them. Sometimes I do that, but if you want to see it, then bring it up on a device And under maps and weather charts, view interactive map, and there it is. So it's not super slick because you can, as far as I can tell, you can only look at one sectional chart at a time. So for example, I planned a flight earlier from my area over here, based near Hillsborough, HIO, down to Klamath Falls, and I had to scroll along until I had the option to go turn this on, which is the Klamath Falls sectional. But then my Seattle sectional goes away. So it's a little bit clunky, but it's free. Free is a very good price. So let me just zoom in. Oops, let me go back out because I like it. So now here's weather. And where'd my layers go? I have zoom things in the way of the stuff I got to click, but there's a way to select layers, so you can turn that weather on and off. I mean, if there's a bunch of this green and blue stuff, it might hide what you're trying to look at, so you might turn that layer off just so you can look at the chart better. But here's stuff that's lit up. Everything looks pretty much green. In other words, here at Hillsborough, it's green means VFR. And if I click on that, boom, there it is. So at Hillsborough, and it's the current ATIS. Remember, this doesn't mean it's this minute's weather. It means this was the weather essentially at 7 minutes before the hour, averaged backwards in time from then. So wind 300 at 14. 10 statute miles of visibility, that's fine. Keep in mind that in a METAR, it only goes up to 10. 10 means 10 or more. It could be infinity. So if you see 10, that doesn't mean it's not 20. It just means it's not less than 10. Or it wasn't back at that time. So 10 miles in light rain. And then here's a few clouds at 4,700. Broken at 6,000, nice VFR. If you don't need to go high and get over mountains, you can have a good time flying in the valley if this holds throughout the area. And then overcast higher. And then they'll also give you the TAF. So let's see, 290 at 9. And the actual wind is 300 at 14. So I'm already starting to believe the forecast because the wind is, within 10 or 20 degrees and within a few knots. So I'm sort of already happy that the TAF is being matched by the actual reading. Now in a TAF, strangely enough, it only goes up to 6. They only forecast as good as 6 statute miles. If it's more than 6, and if they forecast better than 6 statute miles, they put a P in front of it, like +6 or 6+. So when you see P6SM, they're sort of saying, we expect visibility to be better than 6. And then there's a dash SHRA, so light rain showers. And they're forecasting scattered 2,500, broken 3,500, and so on. Well, they said broken 3,500. The actual broken is back at the hour was 6,000, so it's actually doing better at the moment than the forecast. And then later on, the wind comes down to 320 at 6, and so on. So you got your whole METAR and TAF right here. That's all I want to do with WX Brief. If this is what you're going to use, I really encourage you to get in here and just turn on different layers and see what's available and how to get at it. Let me just one more quick thing while I'm here. So I fly out of Stark's Twin Oaks, which is right here, just south of Hillsborough, a little ways. Uncontrolled field, no reporting, but the next reporting stations to the south are over here at Aurora and further west at McMinnville. So let me just look at the area and see what's going on. Winds 7 gusting to 15 out of the west, and still 10 miles visibility over there, at least on the hour. Few clouds at 4,600, a few scattered at 5,500, and then broken above. So, all right, so far in my valley, it's looking pretty good. And over here at McMinnville, automated briefing, from the west, 1.4 gusting to 2.1, so a little bit gusty. And then few clouds at 4,300, broken at 55. So I see that consistency in there. I would be like, well, if I feel like dealing with those winds, I feel pretty good that it's going to be VFR. And that's one of the things I mean by correlating information is look at your nearby airports and don't get too focused just on the specific place where you are, because Hillsborough may have been clear, but Aurora and the other nearby places may be down in the dumps, and that would tell you that there are rain showers flying through or something like that. And by the time you get out there, it may not be so pretty. So, so that's WX brief. Aviationweather.gov. It's interesting that they both exist even. So in WX brief, you can get full briefings if you go through the right here, briefing, filing, and navlog over here on the left. Once you put in your the departure, destination, and route, and so on, you can get a full briefing. You can file a flight plan. At aviationweather.gov, no, you can go here and get information, but there's nothing to file. There's no facility for giving it your tail number or filing or anything like that. So lots of great information, METARs, TAFs, PIREPs, and so on. You just can't essentially create a briefing that would satisfy 91.103, and you can't file it. So use it for information. It's got a lot of great detail, and it's free. All right, so, and then there's Windy. Windy is amazing. If you haven't looked at Windy, please do. Windy.com or the Windy app. Look at this beautiful graphic. Let me see if I can get zoom out of the way. Yeah. Okay, just checking to see how that looks to you. So these, right now I have it way over here on the right. There's a little slider. Whoops. This, yeah, I can't grab it. Come on, baby. Where's my slider? Nope. Let me grab the slider. There it is. So if you see, I'm going up and down with this thing all the way on the right. So that's how you can set the altitude where you want to see the winds. And it's just gorgeous because it just draws it out for you like this. It's absolutely beautiful. And right now I have it on surface. And remember, we just looked at Hillsborough and McMinnville and so on, right in my little area here near Portland, and everything was pretty much out of the west. All the winds were westerly and gusty. So here's that westerly flow at the surface. And so now we're going to start thinking about correlating with other information that I'm going to end up on Foreflight to show that to you. So look over here out on the ocean to the west, and you see this clockwise circulation mainly. I have not looked at the synopsis yet, so I don't know, but how do you get clockwise circulation in the Northern Hemisphere? Would this be a high or a low? I'm pretty sure y'all know that it's in Northern Hemisphere. It's clockwise around a high and counterclockwise around a low. So very likely we're going to see a high pressure area way out here. I don't know, what is that, 500-600 miles west of the northern coast of California. And then up here, it's really cranking up in, it looks like Saskatoon and Edmonton, and it's counterclockwise, really, really tight. And there's probably a pretty respectable low up there. Now again, these are at the surface. Let me see if I can drag my little slider, if it'll let me catch it. I want to get up to 3,000 feet. Oh man. It only doesn't work when people are watching. There it is. All right, so that's 2,000 feet, 2,500, 3,000 feet. Okay. So sort of the same pattern. This high doesn't seem as strong at 3,000 feet as it did on the surface, except way out here to the west, it's cranking like crazy. Southwest towards the north. There's something going on even further west that we don't have on the screen right now. But there's still this very tight circulation up here just above Montana. And so I'm this is one of the things I correlate with to see like, well, how long is this weather going to last? And, you know, is there going to be turbulence? Someone emailed me before the webinar and said about wind shear. Wind shear is typically considered, you know, a low-level wind shear is where if it's at altitude, it's just turbulence. If it's at low levels, it's called wind shear because that's what can rob you of performance. If you're flying into a 20-knot headwind and then you get a little bit lower and all of a sudden that wind disappears, you just lost 20 knots. So that's going to be on the surface analysis and the METARs and TAFs, specifically what the wind is. If it's gusty, it's a guarantee wind shear because they kind of mean the same thing. So let's jump over to Foreflight and see what we can correlate there. I got to move a couple things around on my screen. And let me see. So first of all, I've been looking in here, so just so you can orient in case you're from some other part of the world. And so where this is pointing is the Hillsborough that I looked at earlier, and that's that METAR with 310 at 14 and so on. And the gusty winds, I think we're down here at Aurora. Go to the METAR, yeah, 280 at 7, gusting to 15. And McMinnville was 280 at 14, gusting to 21. And so let's zoom out and see what the big picture is. So first of all, in order to see the surface analysis, you got to get rid of a lot of clutter because it just hides everything. So I'm going to turn off the sectional chart and I'm going to turn on surface analysis. And it's still cluttery, so I've even going to get rid of aeronautical, and we're pretty much stuck with a skeleton of the United States and things like that. So, so interesting. This circulation out here that was clockwise out here west of the north coast of California, it doesn't specifically have a H there, so they're not calling it a high. But look, the pressure along this isobar is 1,028, and these are in millibars. And I think, testing the memory banks, I think 1,013 is equivalent to 2,992 on the altimeter. So this is certainly higher pressure than, for example, the next isobar, which is 1,024. So this is 1,028, 1,024. So this is higher than this, and therefore there's clockwise circulation out here, so that explains that. And then here's that juicy low. So the millibar is here all the way down to 992. So from 1,028 all the way down to 992, and then here's that circulation around this low, where there's this stationary front coming out of it, sort of eastbound. It's spawning a cold front that's sort of north-south here, but there's a warm front. I mean, this low has all kinds of things associated with it. There's a trough coming out of the low towards the northwest. There's another low over here. So I look at all these lows all around me, plus those strong surface winds, and I may have a few hours to fly, but I don't know how long this stuff is gonna stay friendly in VFR, because there's just lots of circulation, and then this wind is going to show up eventually, so it's just going to get bumpier and bumpier. So for example, if I was going to fly from the Portland area down into Nevada, I'll be flying straight towards that low, and there's going to be a lot of wind, turbulence, winds aloft over these mountains that are in between. I would want to wait this thing out. I wouldn't want to go in that direction. All right, let me think here for a second. All right, so let's, what I want to do is, so let's test that out. So we're saying, I'm theorizing that here around this low, there's going to be strong and gusty winds because this circulation is all around these Sierra Nevadas and so on. And let's test that out. So I'm going to turn on aeronautical and VFR map, and then let's see what we can find. So here's KWMC. I have no idea what that is. Winnemucca, Nevada. And let's find out. 270 at 14. It's actually not that bad. And good visibility, clouds at 12,000 feet and up. All right. What's the forecast? 250 at 13, gusting to 23. Forecast is for pretty gusty winds, at least until 03 Zulu tomorrow, which is -7 for me. So that's about 8 o'clock. Then it looks like it's going to try to calm down a little bit, probably as that low moves off, most likely to the east. But the way to find out where it's going to go is to look over here in Foreflight land at the bottom of one of these boxes where it says winds. They mean winds aloft. So let's see. And I got to find out one important piece of information is field elevation. So Winnemucca is up there at 4,300 feet. So the lowest winds aloft they're going to give us is at 6,000 feet. 299er, so basically northwest-ish at 20. And then it goes up at 6,000, 9,000, 12,000, and so on. It goes from 20 to 22 to 30 to 39. And now it's blowing pretty good up there. 44 knots, 49 knots, all pretty much out of the west. So I'm expecting this low to move eastbound at a pretty good clip, which means tomorrow it's probably going to be a much better day. If I just wait a day, I should be able to get in there. And the forecast kind of bears that out. Well, it bears it out wind-wise. See, we're down to 280 at 5, 340 at 9. So the gusts went away, but now there's precip and low clouds coming in. So that's what I love, is it correlating this and figuring out what to believe and where everything is. So, okay, well, 5 minutes left. Let me look at the chat. Let me pop out of here. And let's see, am I using Pro or Performing Plus? I believe I have Foreflight Pro. The isobars were not that close together. I agree with that, but still, that windy showed it really churning there. Wind shear appears at all levels, but it's more dangerous near the surface. It's a true statement. And nice to see that others use windy too. And why do you call it legal? If you get it from 1-800, it's legal if you get a formal briefing. So just be careful about that. If you're at 1-800, if you're anywhere, 1-800-WX brief, Foreflight, Garmin, anything else, and you just look at TAFs and METARs and individual items like that, there's no record that you got a weather briefing. So you always have to create at least a mini flight plan and say, please brief me on this flight plan. And then it has a tail number, a date, a time, and it will just throw all those weather products at you. So whether you read them or not, you got a briefing. So please be careful at just poking around and getting data. That's great for getting data, but there's no record of it. So you didn't get a briefing in FAA's eyes or in the insurance company's eyes or in NTSB's eyes until you get a briefing by clicking on brief. So, all right, let me get back to PowerPoint, if I can figure out how, and we will conclude within seconds here. We got about 3 minutes left. And let's see. So I don't know if you're aware, but we out here in Fast Team Land, this is totally volunteer. And since this is a new workshop for me, I've spent at least 6 hours putting this together and getting organized. And then I have at least another hour's worth of work to get all your emails in and make sure you get your wings credit. And I love doing this. We do it for free. We don't get paid. And that's true for seminars, webinars, everything like that. So I'm happy to do it. I gave you my email address earlier. I'll do it again real quick in case you want to talk to me after the fact. As soon as I figure out how to do that, I'll do that in a second. So anyway, if you think I deserve a cup of coffee, buymeacoffee.com/PhilM and buy 1 or 3 or 5, send them my way. I'd be grateful. If you don't want to do it, don't. So I'm going to stop share, just put my email address in one last time to everyone. If you want to grab it, and PHMAND there, and love to hear from you. Anything else from anybody on chat? Or if you want to, I mean, I'm in no hurry. So if you're sticking around because you want to make sure you got the hour for wings credit, you got it. But if you want to unmute, go ahead. If you got any questions, just go ahead and shoot, or comments or anything to share with the group. Feel free.
If you're just flying around in the like a practice area, do you have to get a weather briefing if you're just within an hour of your airport or something like that, like legally?
Yeah, I understand. Very good question. Let me get back to that regulation, and stand by while I figure out how to get back there, and we'll read it together. That's a really good question.
I think it's required if it's not within the vicinity of an airport.
Depends on what we mean. So you're correct for letter A here, but let's read this together. So each pilot in command shall, before beginning a flight, to me that means any flight, become familiar with all available information concerning that flight.
There it is. There's a
interesting sentence, because then it's followed by, this information must include, for a flight basically not in vicinity of an airport,
there we go,
weather reports and forecasts and so on. But the first paragraph says before any flight. So I don't know. I certainly don't get a full briefing every time I just go out to screw around a little bit. So, but maybe I'm being a bad boy. I don't know. But so that's an interesting question. I can't give you a hard answer. I mean, if you want to be as safe as possible, just get a briefing, right? Just say you're going from your origin to some VOR or anywhere. Just make up a waypoint and back. Hit the briefing button. Go have a cup of coffee, and then grab your headset and go. You know, you got a briefing.
Awesome.
So,
thank you.
Interesting question. Yeah, thank you. And thanks. I didn't know who chimed in with that answer part, but I appreciate that. All right, what else? 1 or 2 more, and then I'm sure you're all ready for dinner or bed, depending on what time zone you're in. Don't be shy. We have each other to learn from.
Do you have somewhere that I can go to be able to read and interpret the prognostic charts?
Whoa. Yeah, I didn't get into any progs. That's a darn good question. Certainly the FAA publications, Aviation Weather and Aviation Weather Services. Anybody have other resources that are friendlier? I mean, are there videos? Are there trainings? That's the best I can do at the moment. Anybody have other ideas on that? Okay. You know, I mean, Google it and YouTube it and so on, but the official publications are those. Also, probably Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. That would be a great place to go. Just dig into that chapter. Yeah, very good question.
All right. Yeah, that's definitely my biggest. You know, just figuring out what's actually happening by looking at those is going to be a big step for me, I think.
Very good point. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I didn't even make it to that because the hour went away. But yeah, I did go outside the topic. You're right. Thank you for that comment. I guess I spent a lot of time on other things. Someone's asking, do we always land on 2 and take off on 20? Please email me because that's specific to the airport that I fly at, and I'm happy to discuss that.
Bill, what is your favorite or most popular website to go to check cloud tops?
Cloud tops. You know, if I was flying instruments, which I haven't done for an embarrassingly long time, I'd have an answer because I'd be interested in cloud tops. But for VFR, since I'm hanging around underneath, I don't have an answer. Anybody else? Any thoughts on that? Someone like that says like the metograms on windy.com, meteograms on Windy. That's interesting. I didn't know that. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for you.
On aviationweather.gov, there is one page under the GFS that shows the cloud tops.
Oh,
and,
okay.
And bases.
Okay. All right. Does that help you?
It's kind of, it shows a map and then shows the cloud overcast as dark purple. And within each grid mark, they've got a cloud top.
Okay. And that was at which website again? I'm sorry.
Aviation.gov, aviationweather.gov.
Aviation weather. Okay. That's great. All right. Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to clarify, what do I need to do to get the wings credit? Is that automatic or do I need to do something?
So yeah, I'm glad you asked. Give me a few days because it's at least an hour's worth of work before I get around to first find the time for it and then do all the copying and pasting I got to do. So give me about a week. If you don't see it pop into your email within a week, hit me up on my email. But
yeah,
from this point on, it's automatic, meaning I do it. It's not automatic. I still have to do it. Yeah.
I just wanted to know if I didn't have. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have to do anything. So yeah, take your time. I'm not in a hurry for it.
I understand. Thank you for asking.
Thanks again.
Thank you. All right, folks, fly safe, stay away from viruses. And by the way, I have a webinar on Saturday, 9 o'clock my time on checklists, believe it or not. There are, you know, I've been teaching a long time and I've developed a sensitivity to, I don't know how to say this. I don't know that checklists are always used properly. Let's put it that way. And I'd like us to as a group get more rigorous about that and really pay attention to each item as if your life depends upon it, because it's kind of true. So we're going to look at accidents that happen because people miss checklist items, and then we'll talk about what makes a good checklist and how to use it properly and things like that. So go to FAAsafety.gov, find the webinars, and it's coming up 9 a.m. my time, Pacific time, Saturday the 23rd. So I'd love to see you there or anywhere else online, or hopefully in person someday as well. So anyway, email me any further comments and questions. I'd love to hear from you. All right. Okay. Thanks so much for sticking in there with me. Thanks.